Welcome to the Journey podcast, and thanks for taking just a little bit of extra time out of your week this week to join us as we continue to learn together how hearing other stories helps us to live a better story ourselves. Life's journeys are not always a straight road. Oftentimes they're winding and lead us down paths we may not expect. And sometimes, later in life, we find ourselves rekindling things that we experienced in our youth. Today we talk to Lamont Johnson as he tells us his story and how he impacts the youth of today. Thanks so much for joining us. Hey, and welcome back to the Journey podcast. My name is Eli, and thanks so much for joining us once again here. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Lamont. And Lamont, I'm so glad to have you here with me today just to chat a little bit. For those of us who don't know you or maybe haven't met you, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First, I want to thank you because this is my first podcast that
I've been
invited to. So,
Hey.
But yes, my name is Lamont Johnson. I'm a father of 7, a husband. I am a brother, uncle, and friends to many. As my profession, I'm a program director at the local Boys and Girls Club here in Maysville. That's working with kids from ages 5 to 15, a little bit older due to the staff that we have. That's the part of our youth development staff. But like I said, that's what I do as a daily and been a provider for my family.
That's awesome. First question really quick, actually, before we get into your work and some of the awesome stuff that you're doing in the community, what's it like? I cannot comprehend being a father of 7. That seems busy all the time.
Now it's slowing down because everyone is getting older. Everyone is, having their own families. But at the beginning, it was very, I'm going to say rough. A lot of people were saying, how did you do it? Well, I wouldn't have been able to do it without my wife, Amber Johnson.
Sure, yeah.
She's the leader.
Yeah.
This is both for our second marriage. So, I like to say we learned from our first marriage what we didn't have or what was not done, what was our responsibility in that situation.
Yeah.
One thing that Amber and I agreed upon was we didn't have God or church involved in our daily lives, and that's something that we agreed upon in the second marriage.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, man. As someone who doesn't have any, I don't have any children, and anytime I hear about really large families like that, I'm like, man, that seems hectic.
It's trying at times.
Yeah, for sure.
This will be the first time in 17 years, starting in May, that Amber and I don't have to run a cheerleading practice.
Oh, wow.
Basketball or play practice or track practice because we'll be empty nesters.
Wow.
But it's going to be kind of exciting for me because it's the first time that we're able to work on each other.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All our time is going to be given to each other. So that's going to be huge. And, like I said, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I don't know what adventure she's going to have me in, but, I'm willing
I'm sure it'll be good no matter what it is.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
Well, shifting gears then just a little bit, tell us a little bit about what you do just on the day-to-day as far as your work that impacts the youth of our community.
Well, like I said, I'm the program director at the Boys and Girls Club, which is my profession. But I like to help. I've always done different events in town. Like I was over a basketball tournament that we call the Maysville Classic for 20 plus years with a close friend of mine. And COVID happened. So during COVID, a lot changed.
Yeah.
I was getting to the point I was getting burnt out.
Yeah.
So this COVID happened. A lot of people thought it was terrible, but for me, it was a awakening.
Yeah.
Like, hey, even though you're doing this, you're not really doing anything for the community. So I resigned from doing that, passed that on to a couple other friends, and now it allows me to have time to be a part of different committees within the city.
Yeah.
Allows me to be here to do this.
Yeah.
So it just opened up a lot more doors. Sometimes we get so complacent with what we're doing, but what are we really doing? Are we really doing what has been asked of us.
Yeah. Well, and I think so much of in our faith, especially as we're looking for opportunities to minister to other people, it's not necessarily fabricating some grand plan out of thin air. It's being willing to say yes and walk through the open door that God's providing for us right in front of us a lot of times.
Well, I'm a huge fan of quotes and music. So you hear lots of times, like most recently, God's plan. And I'm be the first one to admit, and my wife will too, I never really believed that. As a young kid, a teenager now, was church involved in my life? Yes. Lots of times I think a lot of things that had happened to me because I had a praying grandmother and a praying mom.
Yeah.
So, I look back now being a father, husband, like I really wasn't doing what my mom and my grandmother expected of me.
Sure.
I got away from church.
Yeah.
And so that was huge. I got away from it, but now I'm happy and blessed that I'm able to get back. Now I understand it my way. Everyone has a different relationship. You talk about 7 kids. Each of my children, I have a different relationship with.
Yeah.
They always tease and ask me who's number 1, and I always say it's according what's going on in that day.
Yeah.
So I kind of avoid that, situation.
Hey, that's smooth. That's smooth.
But like I said, everyone has a different relationship. I have a different relationship with the 7, which is different personalities. My wife and I, we both attend church here, but we both have a different relationship of how we take in the word, the message from Chad and your team here. So, but at the end of the day, we all are trying to build and be a better person.
Yeah. Well, isn't it cool though too that each one of those different relationships helps inform the other relationship. Like you said, let's just talk specifically on you and your wife and you and your wife.
Yes.
You and your wife. I'm trying, man. You and your wife and your individual relationships with God and your individual perception of how you take in church and the way you understand things. The great thing is you can use that really to strengthen one another.
Yes.
and find ways to build off of that with each other, as opposed to, that's why, here at Crosspoint we talk so much about it's important to do stuff together, and that mutual understanding of like we're chasing after the same thing, but we may understand it slightly differently.
Correct.
I think really helps us build and be stronger.
And by talking about that, I think about that a lot because my wife's family has always been in church. My wife's father is a pastor, a local pastor. With me, I never had that real close connection. I always done it because of mom and my grandmother. You probably noticed that I mentioned my mom and my grandmother. I'm kind of a mama's boy.
Hey, that's okay. I am too. No shame.
But with mom being gone, I had to figure out something for myself. But like I said, my wife has always been in it. So when we got together and we connected, and then we sat down, there's a lot of little things in our life that connect us. Like I said, she had 2 girls. I had 5 when we got together. But then we start looking at dates. We got 2 children born on the same day.
Wow.
I got a daughter that was born the day that her mother passed away.
Yeah.
So there was just a lot of little things. And then the biggest thing was we got married August 28th.
Yeah.
And my favorite Bible verse is Romans 8:28.
Hey, there you go.
So
That's
it's
awesome.
like just little things like that is huge.
Yeah, cool. And it kind of helps strengthen and like reaffirm stuff in you, no matter what way you look at it. And I think that's the cool thing is we can draw encouragement from wherever we look for it. If we're looking for encouragement, we'll find it. Yes.
And also, growing up too, like friends and associates really play a part in like, you don't need to do that or that. But as you get older, you realize that, the Bible is the manual of life. You got to do it. I don't push, religion on my other friends, but, I've asked God to take things out of my life that I don't need.
Yeah.
So, it's done that, but I've also strengthened my relationship with all the friends.
Yeah.
Because we both respect each other.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that they still do that I'm not involved in, but there's things that we have committed together, and it works. So,
yeah. Well, let's talk about that just a little bit as it pertains to, obviously your work with the Boys and Girls Club.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just, because I think it's really interesting oftentimes if we can look at, where stuff started in our life, right? Usually, if we think about it critically, we can usually, if we look, retrospectively, we can find a point in our life where it's like, okay, something changed there, right? And so I guess that's kind of what I want to ask you. Obviously, I can point to the moment in my life where I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do ministry, right? And so I guess that's kind of my question to you is and feel free to answer however you would like, but I would be interested to know maybe a little bit about what your childhood was like prior to, like you said, you weren't really all that interested in religion. It was mostly by proxy from your mother and grandmother, and you respecting them, and and that's great. But I would love to know when that switch kind of flipped for you, and maybe what it was like a little bit before that for you.
Well, I guess, again, the switch started, more and more when I got involved. My wife and I started dating.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the beginning of the road. And then as my children got older, I have a son, which is my youngest son, that was very unique. He was involved, very active in school. And then things started... not unraveling, but things started happening in my life that he was old enough to realize, him coming to me and be like, Dad, we don't need this.
Yeah.
Or you don't need that. So it's like, wait a minute here. I'm learning from a kid. But, the people that knows my youngest son knows that he's been on this path for years. He has it in him. So that was one case. But what really made me realize, like, you need to get on board quick, do this so everything will be better was December. I can't remember the exact date, but it was December 2017. My mother just passed away with breast cancer, and the church that we was attending then had a foot washing service. First of all, I was like, I'm not going to this. This is nuts. I'm not touching anybody's feet.
I hear you on that, bro. I hear you on that.
So my daughter, Nevaeh, which is in college now, she heard me and my wife going back and forth.
Yeah.
It was a very heavy discussion. Mm-hmm. I'm not going. I was set. I can be a bullhead when I want to. I'm not going. I'm not doing this. Don't ask me. So at that time, I think I was dealing with losing mom. 6 months later, my wife got diagnosed with breast cancer, which is all good now. Yeah, we just had
awesome
positive checkup this past Monday.
That's awesome to hear.
So with all this unraveling, and for my daughter to come, after getting, my son giving me different little things that he does and watching him. So when my daughter came, I was like, you know what, I'll go. I'll go. So I get there. My wife was like, I just want you here. You can sit in the back of the church. So I did. I sat in the back. As the service kept going on, I just started feeling a little different. Then the next thing I know, I'm bawling like a 3-month-old baby.
Yeah.
Like, it was the cry of, I don't want these people to see me crying.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm Lamont. I don't cry. But then it was like, hey, buddy, you better let this go. I'm going to take care of you.
And as a side point of that, too, isn't it really interesting, I think, culturally, and this is something that because I've wept on stage before when leading worship, and obviously that impacts me in a unique way. But as you said, the perception has to be I'm strong, like I'm the man of the house, like I'm going to be resolute, and like I'm not. But it's really interesting when God starts knocking down some of those walls, and kind of like you really like allow that to happen and stop saying like, no, I'm gonna. I think something that was really good for me was when I stopped letting societal norms dictate how I was going to approach my relationship with Christ and my experiences with Him. And once I started just saying, you know what, no, like. This is a good thing. Anyway, sorry to cut you off. You just said something that was...
When that happened, I felt like right then and there I had to make a decision.
Yeah.
But looking up and seeing my wife right there in front of me, holding me, it's like, here's your decision right here.
Yeah.
You need to do what's good for your family.
Yeah.
So after that, things started changing. I started having personal interests.
Yeah.
And then I started looking around me, like the people that have always been around me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, man, they got a good life, but, you know, this is how they carry themselves. They don't look down on people. They don't talk down on people. So I just more or less not gave up, but just let him do what he was going to do with
You released it. You said you stopped when we stopped letting go of control and let him do it. Yeah.
Like I said, it was December 2017.
That's
like
awesome.
I said, mom's death, my wife getting diagnosed. So it was like I was at my end, like, and I didn't realize it, but if I didn't go and just quit being a bullhead father, listen to what my daughter and my son was telling me, I just let it go. So then it was like, you know, this stop. So I stopped. But now, looking back at it, it's like he was done fooling with me.
Yeah.
It was time for me to
come
home and do what I need to do. Now, I get a kick out of this. I'm huge, like I said, I'm huge on quotes and everything. I just read one last week was talking about transition. You know, I've never really been the full follower, but now I like to say I'm in that transition mode of I know what I need to do, but sometimes I resort back to my old way. And you know, I tease people like, look, man, you know, I understand, but I just want you to know I'm still transitioning. You know, but and I've learned to do things like that, like make it fun, you know, and people that know me knows I like to laugh. I have a good time, but when it's really trying to get down to the business, I'll get down to business and handle it. But, you know, my friend that I did 20 years, Brian Miller, that I did Dirt Bowl with, you know, once he seen the change in me, he started sending me Bible verses.
That's awesome.
Every morning.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
awesome.
been going on for the past 5 years. Like, now I look forward to that verse every day from Brian.
Yeah.
And then, you know, talking to other people, I didn't know that he always done it. But there it is again, you know, maybe he's seen that I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And then when he's seen it, he sends it to me. So it's like there's several of us in a group that, you know, people would never think that we're reading Bible verses, but it's just that's our relationship.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean I'm changing towards anybody. I just don't do the things that I did before I had my breakdown, if you will, December of 2017.
Well, and in that kind of the signifying factor of starting to come into right relationship with God, right? Yeah. It's not like suddenly Lamont is the stoic, you know, quiet, reserved, whatever. Like, you're still you.
Yes.
But like we start shedding those things that we know, like that we know. Right, like we know what we probably shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
Yeah, we know, and we start shedding those things off, and we start saying, you know, hey, I'm still me, but that's not me anymore.
Yeah,
like I'm still who I am, but like I know when to say I'm good on that. I don't want to do it anymore.
You know, and sitting here thinking, you know, like I said, I'm transitioning, which I'm proud of. Some people probably be like, man, that's crazy, but that's a process. That's me. Yeah. That's me. But I always remember too, my grandmother going to church every Sunday. And my grandfather never went, but he will always say, look, you don't know what I talk to him about. And I'll be like, Granddad just, you know, pulling Granny's leg, but now I see, like, you don't know. You know, that time that grandmother was at church, I don't know if my grandfather was in the garage, you know, talking, doing his thing with it. So, and that's another thing I get from coming here to Cross Point is we're here for a common cause, but everybody does it in their own way, their own, as you said, process.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I'm curious, you know, before 2017 in December, when you kind of had that moment of realization or whatever you'd like to call it, were you already working with the Boys and Girls Club?
This will be my second go around. I was there when they, 96 to 07. But the way I think of that job now, my position there now is not, I was the most qualified. So my whole, like I said before 2017, I always thought that I deserved it.
Yeah.
I'm the one or something like that to the
You've
fact.
earned this. Yeah.
But now looking back, it's like he was already starting on me. I was the one that wasn't realizing it. I just was going off, like you said before, what society or my surroundings was telling me, not listening to what he was trying to tell me.
Yeah.
So this time back, I approach things a lot different. I'm a lot calmer, basically understanding, because I get my daily dose of medicine, if you will, from my friends, just reading my different quotes. And it's crazy too. My posts and my quotes are so different now because it's like, it's an eye opener. Yeah. I always like to say that before that December 17, my eyes were open, but after that day, my eyes are wide open now. Yeah. I look at everything with an open mind instead of just taking a little situation. I look at it like a whole. How is it affecting everyone? Yeah. So I think, I owe all of that to what occurred in my life, and mainly, I got to save my wife.
Yeah. And isn't it such a cool thing? I don't think a lot of us get that perspective of like working at a place prior to a life-changing event, especially a spiritually life-changing event, and then seeing the dichotomy of those two things whenever all right, here it is prior, and then here it is post that life-changing event, and being able to look at it objectively. And, obviously our workplace is our workplace, and what we do is what we do, and we need to be qualified, and we need to, do our best at it. But, like, that kind of leads me to my next, like, thought and question is, like, does it help you see now, especially, obviously it probably wouldn't have been as much of a thought before, but does it help you see now after that December 17th event, like, even in a way where you maybe can't, like, because I'm not entirely sure what the rules of the Boys and Girls Club is. I'm not, I know Lexi here does some stuff with the Boys and Girls Club, and
I call her crazy child.
She is, dude. She's wide open, man. She's wide open. I love her to death. She's awesome, but she is wide open. Yeah. But does it help you see, like, even if you're not able to, like, read scripture to the kids or do some of those things, how you can be Jesus to those kids in your workplace?
And I guess, yes, because I just, like I said, I approach everything different from what I did before. Yeah. Also, during that time I left, I went to DeepNL. I met so many different people there. I met so many people that had religion day in and day out. Again, it was a power plant. It took care of my family at the time that I needed, because having 7 kids coming through high school, involvement, it was a true blessing. But I think it made me mature to be the 49-year-old man that I am today. Yeah. Just talking and seeing those guys that's been there 40 plus years, that's all they knew. So they was giving me a lot of information. Yeah. Again, looking back, it's like before that date we keep talking about, it's like, man, everything was getting laid out for me. I just didn't take it. Yeah. So now that I'm taking it, it makes a difference. But like with the Boys Club, and it in our motto there is religion, but you still got to be careful.
Very careful, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You don't want to make anyone upset. I just had a situation a couple weeks ago. A little boy nose was bleeding. So I take him in. I'm trying to get the nose stopped. I'm usually good at stopping them, but I couldn't get this one to stop. So I had one of the coworkers, go call his mom. So while we're going through it, he looks down and he asked me what my bracelet was. Yeah. And he saw that I had a cross. He was like, I go to church. And I was like, I do too. I told him, we briefly discussed it, because I'm thinking, like, I don't want to have this discussion with this 5-year-old. He goes and tells mom that we did it. So then he got to telling me how he goes to church and what he does at church. And I explained to him, it's like, it's good that you're going to church. It took me forever wanting to go to church. And he was just looking at me. He's like, why? I was like, it's a long story. And then all of a sudden, nose stopped. So I get him cleaned up. Mom, when we bring him out of the room where I did my little ER training, whatever. Mom was there, and I said, "Ma'am," I said, "I just want to tell you, he saw my bracelet. We spoke about church and stuff briefly." She's like, "Oh, that's fine."
Yeah.
So that made me feel good. So that, with that kid, that 5-year-old kid, we talked. So now it's a different approach. He's looking like, well, you know what, Mr. Lamont, he goes to church or whatever. But it's, again, I have a different relationship with this 5-year-old than with a 15-year-old that hasn't had an event yet that changed his mindset.
Yeah.
So there it is again. God has made me where I can hit either end of the spectrum and everyone on the spectrum. Yeah. So that's how I look.
And isn't that cool how, like you're wearing a little black beaded bracelet with a cross on it, isn't that cool how, like I said, like we were saying in the beginning, it's much less you fabricating this moment and much more a child asks a question and you walk through that door. Yes. Because you have the choice to brush that question off.
Yes.
No, it's just a bracelet. Yes. That's easy to do. And in some instances, it's easier to do that than it is to actually go into it and talk about it. Because like you said, you have to be careful. We have to pick and choose sometimes societally, oddly enough, because of legal reasons sometimes, like what you're allowed to do. Yes. But how do we not let that be an obstacle from us making sure that we proclaim the name of Christ?
I think it goes back to, again, something that I was taught by my parents is you don't approach people. That's what I was taught. You let them approach you.
Sure.
So the way that they approach you is how you approach them. Mm-hmm. So if someone comes to me that's aggressive, I have that in me. Even though I'm still transitioning, I couldn't be aggressive. But if I have someone that is open-minded, want to sit down and have a discussion, then I'm able to do that discussion. So I'll allow people dictate how I'm going to approach them. Yeah. By saying that, some of the stuff that I'm involved in, local boards, it's an organization that I work with in Lexington with kids playing basketball. That's how I approach it. However you approach me is how I'm going to approach you. Yeah.
And like we were saying, and that's all about walking through the door. Obviously there's a time and a place to, there's a time and a place for sure in my mind to be proactive and say, if you see someone struggling, like I think it can be good, even if, and it's wild for me to even have to say this is controversial sometimes, even if it is occasionally controversial to say, I'm praying for you or something. Sometimes it does take that proactive approach to even get them to approach you in some other way. Yes. You know what I mean? But like we've been saying, it's all about taking the opportunity, walking through the open door, and saying yes to whatever opportunity God puts in front of you.
And, a lot of people may see me joining different things around the area, and they may think, oh, he thinks he's something. No, I don't think I'm something. I'm just taking advantage of the opportunity that has presented itself. Like I said earlier before we started recording, I just want to be able to give back to something that has been a part of my life.
For sure. Absolutely.
I've seen so many again in our town, being a Maysvillian, that they get on things, they join things, that they don't have that experience of what it is to be in that place. Yeah. And that's something I learned too by coming to church, like, come as you are.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm taking that as, hey, this is me, I do dress casual. I'm glad that the new fashion is dressing casual with your tennis
me
shoes.
too, brother.
I'm glad for that. Yeah. But, again, there it is. My wife and my youngest son, they keep on me like, Dad, you can't wear that to the meeting. But it's just, again, there's just revolvement. There's, like my oldest daughter stays on me about, sometimes my mouth, I shouldn't say things. And she's like, Dad, you got to be easy. So again, like I said, I have a great team, man. That's pushing me. I have a great team that I rely on to keep me going and keep me in line and keep me up to date with a lot of things that's going on. But, if it wasn't for a second chance of getting married again, I don't know, what it would be. But I owe a lot to, like I said, my mom, my grandmother, and definitely my wife, because again, with them gone, she stepped right in.
Yeah.
Even though she's my wife, and a lot of people may think that you don't rely on your wife, man, I'm here to tell you I do, because she keeps me in line.
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes the strength that we have on ourselves is founded on a lot of those around us, and founded on our relationship with God and our relationship with others.
Yes.
So, well, thank you so much for taking some time to come join me today and chat with me a little bit about the work that you do. And to anybody who's listening, thanks again for joining us. Or if it's the first time you have joined us here on the Journey podcast, we're glad you happened to find us, and we hope you join us again next time. We have quite a few episodes that we've backlogged, so make sure you go back and check some of those out if you're interested in hearing other people's life stories or hearing about some practical ways to do discipleship. But other than that, like I said, thank you so much for joining us here on the Journey podcast, where we believe hearing other stories helps us to live a better story ourselves. We'll catch you guys next time.